Wie viele Leute sind wir denn schon? Oh,
Nine.
Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. So we are now, how many people are we, Sebastian?
11 right now.
11 right now. So we give us a couple of minutes more before we start. I see Murray, Miguel, global business owner. This is Sebastian.
Yeah, that's me. Hello.
I'm Joe. Andres, good morning. Pia, good morning. Michaela, a beautiful day. Well, clouded here in Madrid. You have sun in Barcelona, don't you, Sebastian?
Not really. It's been
Not
raining.
really.
It has been raining terribly for the last 3 days. Very unusual. But I think it's supposed to get better now. Typical April weather.
Michaela's right, sunny on Mallorca for a change. That's good. Enjoy it. Hola, Angel. Good morning.
Switzerland is sunny.
Hey, cool. Yeah, right down where you're from. That's a good idea. Costa del Sol. That's fantastic.
Too bad we can hear you. We cannot hear you.
Yeah, we can't see you or we can't hear you. So you have to give us some feedback in the chat box. That's great. That's a good question. I can't attend this event. Are you going to record it? It's recorded, yes, and we will see if we can get hold of it. We check it. That can be good sometimes. What do you mean? Oh yeah, it will be posted on the GBO website, so we get a recording. That's great. Exciting. You can't hear us and see us, exactly, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, the next time we will change that because we really like to interact a little bit. So we have to interact between us, Sebastian.
Okay, yeah, it's 9 o'clock. Let's go.
Let's go. That's 9 o'clock. How many people are we?
We're 12.
12. Okay. Carlos, hello. There's still people coming in. So let's start. I mean,
yeah,
just with the introduction, then we'll see. So, good morning, everybody. Just the first question: who likes capitalism, and who does not like capitalism? Just think about it, and we'll come back later to it. I would really like to welcome you to our webinar about conscious capitalism. We call it the only sensible way of doing business. My name is Joe, and together with Sebastian, we will lead you through the next hour. Sebas, how he is also called, is for me the godfather of conscious capitalism here in Spain. He and some friends founded the Conscious Capitalism in Barcelona back in the year 2015. And I'm very proud also to announce that we just created a Madrid chapter, which we will go soon public with it, and you will hopefully hear more of us. My special thanks to GBO and to Michaela Feutner, the Global Vice President of GBO, to make this webinar possible. GBO stands for Global Business Owners, and it's a growing international business club established in over 20 cities now, and with more than 650 members worldwide. So it's a growing club. It's an exclusive but relaxed membership community for companies, company owners, entrepreneurs, partners, founders, and investors from many different industries. So within the scope of GBO connects people with knowledge, knowledge with ideas, and ideas with opportunities. And today we want to connect GBO and you, our guests, with conscious capitalism. So what can you expect today? We will give you a basic overview of the conscious capitalism philosophy. We will have a quiz also at the beginning, some more questions, and how the conscious capitalism philosophy could be important in the actual context we're living in. And at the end, we will have a question and answer session. So I would ask you, there's a button which is called Ask a Question down in the line. to ask your question about conscious capitalism there, and we will try to get through it at some point and answer your question. And any comments, feedback, all at the end, it would be great if you could just put it in the chat box on the right side. Okay? So, Sebastian, let's go for it.
Let's go. Yeah, let me share my screen. 1 second, bear with me. And make this large and that's small. And then we can get going. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, fantastic.
Good. Okay. Yeah, we thought we start with a little quiz, little interactions. These virtual get-togethers are one-directional a lot of times, and even though we can't see you and speak to you, but at least we can still ask you questions and get your answers. And what we would like to do is a fun little quiz to check the degree of consciousness of your organization, your company, whatever that is for you today. And these are 10 questions, and we would invite you to simply count the number of yeses. How many times can you affirm the question that we ask you? And just make a little list and count the numbers of yeses. And for the winner, there will be an amazing prize. But bear with me for a moment. So the first question is, can you affirm that your company has its core values clearly defined and published? Are they written down in a book or on a website? First question. Yes or no? Second question. My company has its core purpose defined and published. So why does your company exist? Are you clear about that? Have you communicated that to your stakeholders? Yes or no? Question number 3. We measure the societal and environmental impact of our activity and consider it as an important success metric. Do you have means of seeing if you impact society in a good way, hopefully? Yes or no? The compensation of your CEO or whatever the first lady or gentleman at the top of your organization depends on the societal and environmental impact of your company. Does he only get a bonus for profit or also for other achievements? Yes or no? Question number 5. On your board of directors, has one or several members, do you have one or several members that belong to these categories? Employees, clients, community members, environmental experts. Question number 6. All new employees receive a training in values and behavioral standards during the onboarding process. So do you have an onboarding process, and do you teach your core values? You speak about your purpose and other norms. Yes or no? Question number 7. We have a formal process to regularly and transparently share exhaustive financial information with our employees. Open book policy is what this is called. Do they see how much money the company makes? Maybe even how much money you make? Yes or no? Question number 8. Employees who are not in leadership position own 5% or more of your company. Do you have shared ownership? You have alignment because the company is owned not only by the shareholders but also by its employees. Yes or no? Question number 9. 80% of your employees say that they fully identify with your company and its noble purpose. Engagement. And the last one, our company gives paid time off to its employees so that they can dedicate this time to social causes. Paid time off so they can do good things in your community. Okay. Now, if you will, count the yeses and then write your name and the number of yeses into the chat. And then we will pick a winner. Miguel 3. Okay. Miro 6. Wonderful. Wonderful. Christiana 3. Some more. We're 20 now. Stella 4. Michaela 5. Miro is leading on the one side. So there's a trick to it. I'll share what the price is.
Carlos 6, great.
Carlos 6, excellent. Conscious people here. So the person with the most points and the person with the least points get a copy of the book Conscious Capitalism. So I hope you're all honest. I would suppose the fact that you signed up for a conscious business webinar is a good sign. Missing quite a number of people, maybe some more. How many do we have? 6, 7, 21 participants. Sorry, 0. Honest. Okay.
Perhaps we just continue and somebody else, and we come back to it later.
Yeah, exactly. Then we're good at the end, and then decide who the winners, and maybe we even need to draw if there's a tie between the numbers. So I'll hand over back to you, Joe.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's one thing. These questions, I didn't make them up. These some actually literally come from the B Corp impact assessment. B Corp, you might have heard of that. It's an organization who's certified in a way the degree of consciousness responsibility of a business from a social perspective. So they have a very exhaustive assessment, and these questions I took are from there. So that's quite a high bar, as you can see, but a wonderful way to really make sure that holistically in all the different spheres of your organization you implement conscious practices. Just for your information, maybe interesting also for you to study this and to look up. But now I hand over to you, Joe, for the genesis and the philosophy of conscious capitalism.
Okay, so just imagine a garden and the caterpillar, a fat green worm sitting on a bunch of green leaves, completely self-serving, devouring everything it can find. And now imagine the amazing process of metamorphosis when these ugly worms turns into a cocoon and eventually emerge as a butterfly. A beautiful creature. One that serves an invaluable function in nature as it pollinates plants and thus helps create the food others live by. Today, and especially and also here in Spain, where mostly I'm based, I think, is mostly associated, the butterfly is mostly associated, it's mostly associated with the image of the fat self-serving caterpillar. So this is something we should be aware of. But this was not always like that, because for the last century and a half, I would say that business has actually been this butterfly. And in a certain way, if we look about the last 2,000 years, and this is the graph, what is it about the real GDP per capita, gross domestic product. In the first 1,500 years, it was almost stable on $500 per capita until the Renaissance hit in, the Gutenberg printing press was invented, and until the Industrial Revolution at the end of the 18th century, it started to grow constantly. And since then, it has moved upwards exponential. So from 600, 800, 1,000, 2,000, 6,000 up to, and we are now in 2018 worldwide on $18,000 per capita. Just to give you an idea, we in Spain are around about $40,000 per capita, and in the US last year it's an estimation about 65,000. So it's a huge wealth which was created in the last 50 to 100 years, and with a lot of important things going on. But not only on wealth side, also on life expectancy. Globally, the life expectancy increased from less than 30 years to over 72 years. So the 2 centuries of progress, we can expect to live much more than twice as long as our ancestors. Like, this is something really amazing to bear in mind. And this progress is not only on the Western world achieved, it's also in every region today in the world we can expect to live twice as long. Or the global poverty rate. From the 90s to nowadays. In the 90s, it was over 3%, and it went down constantly until till now. Recently, 2019, they published it's below 8%, and the prediction is going further down. So this is the part which is really the nice part of the butterfly of the capitalism. And this wouldn't have been possible, unthinkable with modern business and capitalism. But it's also true that business has lost its way. It has lost touch with society. So we have here the Edelman's 2015 Trust Barometer, and it includes a report about the percentage of people who perceive that changes in business is driven by certain motives. So, which they are 70% technology, okay, 66 business growth targets, 54% is greed, money, 35% is personal ambition, ego, and only 30% believe that it improves people's lives, and 24% only make the world a better place. And this is something which is really sad, and we should work on that. But also another statistics, which is quite interesting. Next one. The average return on assets of US firms from 65 to 2015, the last 50 years. So the average return on asset, normally 5% is seen as normal and good, which was in 65, 4.7%. And it went constantly down until 2015 to 1.3%. So even earning money, shareholder value, it's a big question mark if this is reached. So how can we go for the next step? Where are we heading to? We think that business needs to correct its course. It needs to go back to its roots. It was started to satisfy a human need, not to get rich. And we think that the business needs to become more conscious. And for that, our message, what we would like to bring over today is capitalism, practiced in a conscious way, is the biggest force for good the world has ever seen. So how can we do that? So the conscious capitalism is based on 4 tenets. The first one is higher purpose, conscious culture, conscious leadership, and stakeholder integration. So higher purpose means it's a purpose-driven organization versus a profit-driven organization. A purpose beyond earning money for its shareholders. This is the why we're here, why we're doing that. Integration of stakeholder means that we have in mind all stakeholders, all participants in a company involved and care for them. Clients, employees, shareholders, providers, society, the nature, the environment. You cannot use power of one group to exploit another. That's the idea behind it, and have them in mind. In conscious capitalism, we speak about, not only in conscious capitalism, we speak about win-win-win. You win, I win, but everybody else also win. Then you have conscious leadership. A conscious leader is a servant leader, one that is at the service of his team and all stakeholders, rather than the way around. So it's not an ego trip. You're serving, it's leading, you're serving. Conscious culture, based on values, based on important values like trust, accountability, transparency, integrity, personal growth, and above all, love and care. And I think we should start talking in companies also about love. I think this is not very usual, and it's something really worth thinking about it. So again, purpose is the why. Culture, leadership, stakeholder is how we will do it. Okay. So we have also some good news. Companies who live this kind of values, this kind of purpose, with compassion, with love, caring, soulful, joy, authenticity, they are quite successful. Rush Sasodia, which is one of the founder of the conscious capitalism movement back in 2010, he brought out a book which is called Firms of Endearment, and the second edition came out in 2017. And he was analyzing the success of these kind of companies. And it's interesting. Next slide, please.
There you go.
It's interesting. What they did is they looked at the cumulative returns from 97 to 2017, so 20 years. Standard & Poor's performance was 269. Good to great, which is another index, 422, so it was already far better. But all these firms, in the firms of endearment, they were over 2,000% in returns, cumulative. Almost 8 times more than the Standard & Poor index. So you can do good and can earn money. So I think this is interesting. So far, so good.
Okay, thank you.
Sebastian, you take over.
Yeah. Let me put our movement, the philosophy, in a more current context, and where do I see the evolution of this way of doing business? I think that the first thing I would say it's by no means new. They've always been conscious companies. Maybe here an example that surprised me. Henry Ford wrote this beginning of last century. A reasonable profit is right, but not too much. He wants a large number of people to buy and enjoy the use of a car because it can give a larger number of people, men those days, employment and good wages. He actually doubled wages. So all over the world, I think since we conceived the idea of business, there have been conscious capitalists practicing business in this way. For me, I would probably say that this is the most impressive current example. Outdoor clothing company, Patagonia, 100% owned by a Canadian gentleman who founded it. For me, an amazing example. It's $1 billion company, but they do things like that. On Black Friday, the pinnacle of consumerism, they put an ad in the New York Times for a lot of money and say, "Don't buy this jacket." They're all about recycling. They don't want you to buy a new jacket, rather send in the old one you have and we'll fix it, or we'll recycle it and get you a new one out of that. The impressive example, it has always been there. So conscious capitalism the movement didn't invent it. So it was always there. But then in the 70s, actually inspired by this gentleman and several others, shareholder capitalism came about. This famous phrase, the one and only social responsibility of a business to maximize profit. And we started believing it. The reason for this came about because large public companies had very powerful CEOs, and they did a lot of things, and shareholders didn't perceive them as defending their interest, and until the concept of shareholder capitalism was invented. But I think this, from today's perspective, this is a stupid statement. It's just not true, and we now see how much damage it caused. Just led us down a path which I think many people now regret, because business is reputation-wise where it is, and we produced a lot of human damage and environmental damage in the process. And the symbol of this is probably the movie Wall Street. Gordon Gekko, the investment banker, who said greed is good. That was cool at some point. We really lost our way, and events in the last 20 years contributed to this perception. The reality and the perception, the in the public that something is going wrong with business. The Enron scandal was in 2001. The big 2008 meltdown of Wall Street, Lehman Brothers, and Bear Stearns, as the most spectacular victims of this crisis. This is the breakdown of a collapse of a knitting factory in Bangladesh, where Corte Inglés and Mango and several big brands were fabricating their garments. I think another example of not being conscious of the well-being of your stakeholders. The Dieselgate of Volkswagen, big scandal in 2015. Greta came about in 2018, had a huge impact on society in general. The whole climate change debate came into a completely different perception, and people took it finally for real and serious, and the impact on business is enormous. I think a lot of things have changed since then. And now the coronavirus, again, I think a milestone, a very significant event in the course and the spread of the conscious business philosophy, and I come back to that in a moment. So the question is, do we need to change the system, or can we somehow fix it and reform it? And I think there's not really a very good alternative. We tried some things in the East called communism, socialism. They didn't really work. They broke down as well, and there's no clear vision for something better. So a change is coming. So we think that the best option a business has, and it's also a decent thing to do, is just to not wait until societies fell up with it and then governments move in and regulate it, or even reform it in ways that also could eliminate a lot of the benefits. Joe spoke about the enormous benefit the free market system has brought to the world, has eradicated poverty almost. Only 8%, down from 40 and 50% not too long ago. So I think it has a lot of advantages. We haven't really invented something else, but we should reform it from the inside, and it's not very difficult. It's just in essence, you just need to change the intent, the motivation for doing things. If you change from I'm here to make shitloads of money, to make a huge profit, to this company exists and we do our work to serve somebody in society, to be useful, and from there the rest flows in a way. There are a lot of things and practices that we teach in conscious capitalism, but it starts with this change of intent, and that's the change we, as a movement, as the conscious capitalism movement, we want to bring about. The good thing is we're not alone anymore. This is the conscious capitalism movement was born in I think 2005, the beginning of this millennial. John Mackey and a group of friends founded a group called Flow, and out of that, then conscious capitalism evolved. I think the 2008 crisis had a big impact also on accelerated thing. So I think in a way, he and his buddies who started this movement were pioneers, but we will now see, and you see it all over the place, we're not alone. The messages of conscious capitalism, they appear everywhere. And this is I think a supplement of the Financial Times not too long ago, calling for a reset for conscious capitalism. Business must make a profit. That's true. Conscious capitalism also confirms that, but it also should serve a higher purpose. Financial Times. This is John Mackey, the founder of conscious capitalism. The movement, like I said, was constituted in a smaller group at the beginning of the 2000s, and then in 2009 it became public, changed its name, and then started to organize conferences. And I think a year or two later, then also the book Conscious Capitalism came out. that's very helpful. And that's one of the reasons I also joined the movement, because it's very well documented. The book helps a lot to make it tangible, and to explain to people what this is about. It's not just slogan, but there's a lot of thought that went into this, and a very coherent framework that he and Rashi Sodia developed. The B Corp movement or organization, it's a non-profit organization. I mentioned that earlier. Started at a similar time as Conscious Capitalism. As I said, they certify companies. It's a very intense and exhaustive way of checking the degree of consciousness, of responsibility of your business, from environmental to how you treat your vendors, how do you treat your employees, if you're purpose-driven, up to legal changes in the constitution of the company. So very interesting for companies that are a little further advanced, but just the fact that you examine yourself with such an audit as puts a lot of things in motion that you've never thought about, and step by step makes you a more conscious company. Sustainable brand is something that has been around for a long time. People that promote brands that stand for values beyond profit and pure business. Another movement, inclusive capitalism, is promoted by a lady who is part of the Rothschild bankers family and has great context. Bill Clinton spoke at their conference in 2018. This is an alliance of these organizations. Conscious Capitalism, you see it at the bottom, so we are part of that. B Lab, the B Team, that's a movement led by Richard Branson and Paul Pullman, the former Unilab's CEO. Inclusive Capitalism is part of that as well. And business itself is changing the narrative. This is Larry Fink, the chairman and CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, 6 or almost $7 trillion under management. He writes a letter to his portfolio companies, and his portfolio companies basically every large public listed company. And he's really becoming really serious and requiring them to change their way of doing business, to become socially conscious, to be mindful of their impact on environment. So here the quote: "To prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but also show how it makes a positive contribution to society." Very surprising, from somebody we would kind of intuitively identify with really the other side, the shareholder, so the value doctrine. But things are changing. This is a remarkable event. Last summer in August, a group called the Business Roundtable. I think 180, 190 of the largest U.S. companies. Some faces you recognize here: Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Tim Cook of Apple, Mary, forgot her name, the CEO of GM, the lady in the middle, Larry Fink to the right. This has been a lobbying group, and they used to have a manifesto that used to be a very firm commitment to shareholder value, and that was completely revised, and adopting conscious capitalism language was republished in August with a commitment to stakeholder orientation. Companies should have a higher social purpose and have its stakeholders in mind. So very interesting movement which happened recently at a speed that I didn't expect. The World Economic Forum, and another example, the pinnacle of probably capitalist elites coming together to manage or manipulate the world, completely changing its narrative. They have been quite active in the environmental space for a long time, but Klaus Schwab, the founder of that, he dug up a concept that was actually already introduced in the debate, I think in the 70s and 80s. They call it stakeholder capitalism. It's more of the same, different words, different languages, different nuances, but the business establishment is changing the narrative. And then COVID-19 comes around. We are in the middle of this, and it's really early. But I think it will at least be another very important thrust for this approach. One very interesting example, very current, Johnson & Johnson, the US pharmaceutical manufacturer, they are working on a vaccine for COVID-19. They're planning to, I think, to start clinical trials in September. And they announced that at the end of March, I think the 30th, March 30th. And they announced it as a non-for-profit initiative. So they don't want to make money on this vaccine. Yeah? Nevertheless, the stock price on that day gained 6.5%. This is bizarre almost, but it shows that the markets really value if companies show commitment to society. So the people investing their money into Johnson & Johnson are convinced that even if they don't make money on this particular activity or development, that in the long term, Johnson & Johnson will benefit from this commitment to society, be a good citizen. And a remarkable event that really gives me a lot of hope. So, summarizing, business needs to urgently reform itself. Change will come if we as business leaders don't do it ourselves. Others will do it for us, and we might not like it at all, and we might destroy a lot of value in the process. Conscious capitalism, or whatever you want to call it, and we went through lots of initiatives that pursue similar purposes. For me, it's the only sensible way of doing business. We just got it wrong, and I include myself. I mean, I wrote my master thesis on a financial instrument that were used to measure shareholder value. So also I came a long way, but now I don't see another way. It just doesn't make sense, from a purely human perspective. And as I was hopefully able to demonstrate, change is accelerating. I think it's unavoidable. I see the history of the human race is a history of increasing consciousness. If you open the paper, it doesn't appear this way, but no matter what you look at, if it's health, if it's life expectancy, if it's crime, if it's wars, things are getting better. So we are becoming more and more intelligent. I think we get a better understanding of how reality works, and we get it wrong sometimes. There's wars, there's shareholder value approaches, but the underlying tendency is positive. So I think conscious capitalism will come. I don't know exactly how long it will take, but it's in process. It's accelerating. It has always been there. We just need to be many more. And from our side, we just want to do our piece to accelerate this. And that's why we're here. And hopefully this little speech gives you a good impression of where the whole debate is and the philosophy, where it comes from and where it's going. And we could open up to some discussion, Joe.
Yep. I would like to remind you that we have ask a question down here. So if you have a question, just key in your question. And we will start with some question. I will start with some question to Sebastian. And let's see how we get along. So when did you come across, Sebastian, of conscious capitalism, and why did it attract you at that time? It's quite a while ago, I understand, no?
Yeah. I'm German. I was raised Catholic, not very seriously, but that's my spiritual origin. But then in my early 30s, I discovered Buddhism, and I was quite appealed by it. And I can't say that I'm a formal practitioner, but I really like the philosophy. You don't have to believe too much. It's more really, it's not really a religion in my point of view, but rather a way of life, and I try to apply it. But what was hard for me in the beginning was to kind of bring this into business. was struggling with that. No, so I had a kind of two mindsets: the more tough-minded business approach, and then my spiritual orientation. And then I took a summer course at the MIT in Boston, and then all of a sudden I had Raf Sisodia in front of me. He was speaking about terms of endearment. Conscious capitalism was being born at that moment. He mentioned it already, but as an organization didn't exist at that point. And that really hit home with me. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And then I could kind of combine. I saw an approach where my spiritual beliefs, how could I apply them with a solid framework into my business day to day, my business practices. So the two important things, my love and passion for business. I love doing business. I'm not supposed to say that, but it's a wonderful game in a way, and I'm passionate about it. And then Buddhism and trying to be a good person in business just make a lot of sense. And Conscious Capital put that together for me. So I heard Rash speak and was really hooked and started researching and reading and then also kind of witnessed the birth of the Conscious Capitalism movement. It was first a closed club, like I mentioned earlier, an organization called Flow. But then they decided after the 2008 crisis, they really they saw clearly that the world needs this. We need to share what we've learned. These were all entrepreneurs who practiced this. You kind of invented this their own way, and that we need to share this with the world. And then I think it was in 2012 that they in San Francisco organized the first Conscious Capitalism public conference. And I flew over and participated in this, and continued to build a network and research and read and write a little bit, and went all to the subsequent conferences. And then in 2000, I don't remember, 14 or 15, flying back from Chicago, I said, we need to bring this to Spain. Spain was still in a deep economic and social crisis with corruption all over the place, and it's so obvious that this country, like most others, we need consciousness, and especially in business, we will not fix the world without business. Business is so powerful, very difficult to control for governments. So business needs to reform itself from the inside. And let's bring this to Spain. And then we gathered a fairly large group of local entrepreneurs, business leaders in Barcelona. We were 27, and constituted the Spanish chapter. Back then it was only Barcelona. Now very happy to see that we have a new chapter in Madrid. Congratulations, and thank you for the great work. And from there we built the organization, lots of activities, mainly around spreading the philosophy, teaching people what this is about. Also, as practical as we can be, building the community. A lot about this, about bringing people together, because you can have this longing, so you want to do something about it, but in a particular context, sometimes it's very hard to even speak about it. People look strange at you. But to be in a community with people who've done that, who've been bold and who've changed things, who have a completely different narrative, people, they take courage and then go back into their leadership teams and boards, and the courage to say that this business is not to make money. Its businesses should be to serve people.
So. So from your point, your experience, how would you define consciousness? I mean, this is a concept, it's a huge concept, and to bring it down to business. And when would you consider a company as conscious?
We use a big word. It's the title that gives the name to this movement, without really fully understanding what it is. As far as I know, the scientists have not really been able to pinpoint what consciousness is. Is that within our body? Is that part of our brain, or is it outside? Or is it something we share? So we don't really know. But I think we can pragmatically describe what we mean by it, and it's necessary. And I think it has a lot to do with awareness, to really being sensitive of what is around you, your environment, to have a large and granular map of the world, of reality, and then acting, having this understanding, it allows you to see the consequences of your actions. They don't. What I do as a company, it doesn't stop at the company gate. It translates into the lives of the families of the employees in our organizations. It translates. It affects the environment. It affects in terms of taxes we pay. It affects the state and how society is able to work. It's a big difference if we pay taxes or not. And this awareness of that my actions, my decisions have effects. Rashid Sisodia says there are no side effects. It's cause and effect. And consciousness for me is the on the one side the awareness of the effects of my actions, and then the moral integrity to then be considerate and do things, like you describe it, that hopefully is a win-win-win for as many people as possible that are affected by my business decisions. So it's really it's kind of the better, the finer, the wider, and the more grandeur our mental models, the better we understand reality, and with that better understanding of how things work, what effect, what cause has what effect, then take ethical, moral decisions. That's how I would define consciousness. And a company, all companies are somewhat conscious. They're considerate people that are considerate to clients, to employees, to vendors who try to not damage the environment. But it's a long journey, and some are more at the beginning and some are further advanced. Nobody is fully conscious. I think you can look at it also at the personal level. It's very similar. It's a way of life. It's the willingness and making the effort to become more conscious, a little bit more conscious every day. But there's no end point to it. Maybe the end point is Buddha and Jesus and these people. Maybe they achieve complete consciousness and they're in unity with the rest of the world. But for us mortals, it's a journey at the individual level and at the company level. And I think all we need to do is try to be a little more conscious every day and make progress on that journey.
So I totally agree. I think there are a lot of companies out there who are already very conscious, but they don't call it like that. But they're doing it in a very conscious way. And I think it would be great to bring all these people together and talk about the experience, sharing what they do, and get best practice on the table, and everybody can learn about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's always the question is where starts window? When is it window dressing, and when starts really consciousness? I guess this is this point is like, it's just marketing, or is this really like being conscious? No.
I think it's real. You and I don't have any difficulties to mention lots of examples of companies who are making a very, very serious effort. I mentioned a few already. But there's also a lot of window dressing. I mean, this Declaration of the Round Table in the US, of course, that's these are just words for now, and some actions probably, but it's just the very beginning. But I'm already very happy that the narrative changed. That the establishment, the capitalist establishment, recognizes that business is not about making a profit, or not only. It's a condition. It's a necessary condition, but it's not the basic idea. It's not why we do business. And that's a huge advancement. I'm very surprised. What happened the last 2 years, I wouldn't have thought that we would be at this point. And I think COVID will only accelerate it. This business roundtable Business Roundtable Declaration really surprised me, just as much as these letters from Larry Fink, and we'll see more of that. That the World Economic Forum has big leader, stakeholder, capitalism, the Financial Times. I gave you the examples. The narrative is changing, and I think society, especially us as consumers, we can hold companies accountable to that. I mean, if they think about it, if you want to buy fast fashion, don't want to give names, but is it really responsible to buy something for €9, knowing that it will land in a landfill probably half a year later, having been worn 2 or 3 times? So it's in our hands also to hold these companies accountable and make that this is more than just words. But I think there's huge progress.
Sebastian, we have some questions from the audience. Miguel is asking. He's great, but I think that conscious capitalism can be somehow easy to implement for big players who can also see in it an opportunity of marketing and by doing so, and they can still get more business. But a small company with low margins and having a hard time to survive, conscious capitalism may be a luxury, and then the focus is in survival and thriving. So question is twofold. How can small and medium-sized companies implement CC, and how couldn't it be the case that conscious capitalism is just used by big corporation as a tool to sell more? Interesting question.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I agree with the assumptions. I think it's practiced by far more small business and by too few large businesses. I actually think it's the other way around. I think it's far easier as a smaller company. It doesn't necessarily cost money. Just do your work with good intention. Also, treating your employees well doesn't necessarily mean you need to spend a lot of money. Just give them respect, allow them to grow, give them opportunity at work, be respectful with their work-life balance. You don't need huge budgets for that, or to forge long-term sustainable relationship with your vendors. That will pay off. I think quickly you will make money with these ideas, and it won't cost you money. Conscious capitalism companies also they tend to have lower gross margin. But they also save on marketing, for example, and legal expenses and rotation of employees, because they have stronger and more loyal relationships also. So there's a lot of benefits, and as a small company, especially as a startup, I think it's the easiest way to implement this. To really at the beginning of the first hour of your company define a purpose, and then everything flows from that. That's the easy part. Hard is turning around a tanker, a multinational, a monster, but it's also not impossible. Two, in my point of view, very encouraging example. They're far from perfect, but they make huge effort and great progress. One for me is Unilever. We had Paul Polman as CEO for 10 years. He just stepped down a little over a year ago. And he made enormous and brave moves. He stopped quarterly earning calls. That's a big call for a publicly listed company. And Danone for me is also an example. Emmanuel Faber, had the opportunity to hear him speak, and I think he's a very credible figure who's trying to make substantive change in a very difficult environment. I mean, these companies, they all struggle with their plastic issues. There's tons of plastic, our yogurts. They have a sugar issue, but step by step, they're trying to improve that. That doesn't happen from 1 week or 1 month, and not even from 1 year to another. It's a process, and hopefully in his term he can make a lot of progress, and I respect him for that. So I think they're bold leaders, and you really need to be very bold. That try to make a change, but it's not easy. But guys like Larry Fink, who are the biggest shareholder in companies like Unilever and Danone, they will also put pressure on these companies. They want to see that the investment scene is also changing a great deal. The ESG criteria, investment criteria, are really going to the forefront. So environmental, government, and social impact of companies. That's a way of measuring this dimension of investment is becoming a prominent criteria, and there are funds who are focused on that, and they outperform other funds. So I'm hopeful, and everybody can do it. It's a journey, and it won't be perfect, and they will always poke holes. And every company has unconscious acts, and we need to live with that. Just as we, as individuals, live unconsciously sometimes. No, we yell at people in traffic, and we yell at our at our kids, and these kind of things. But it's different. But it's a journey, and like I said, all we need to do is a little bit of progress every day.
So talking about the journey, let's continue. The next question is how to start the journey. Audits were mentioned earlier to get the business ready for the concept. How do they work, and how does a business have to do to start the process?
I think the certification, the B Corp certification, is probably something for later on. I would start with myself as a leader. There's no conscious company without a conscious leader, and most of us still have work to do. What are we about? What do we go? What's our purpose? Do we behave consciously? Do we get feedback? How do people perceive us? So this work as the individual leader, the CEO, but then as a leadership team. Let's be examples of consciousness. That's the leadership development, if you call. That's where I would start. And then define your purpose if you don't have it. That can make a big difference, and take decisions on that. Define your values, and step by step, it's like a Sudoku. There are tons of practice, many of them described in the book Conscious Capitalism, but also lots of other literature around that. And it depends a little bit on where you are, where your priorities are, where your issues lie. Is it do you need to have more work to do with the clients, with the employees, with the environment? It's an individual path you need to design, and sometimes there are good consultants also who can help you with that. More and more people who can give you orientation.
I can on that. The B Corp certification it's more on a longer run, but the B Corp has a questionnaire with 200 questions, which are free online, and it's a good way of going through your company in the 5 parts: clients, providers, employees, and everybody, to check out where you are. So it could be a good guideline, and there are other guidelines and people who can help you on that. But higher purpose is the starting point, and then to define how you can really implement this step by step in your company. Okay. Is there one is asking my question: is the academic university picking up this philosophy for research and teaching, and if yes, where, who? This is Andres who is asking.
I don't have a great overview, but I know that we are active. We just tomorrow we finish a first master in conscious business practice. I think it was called at the University of Barcelona. I know that the local business schools here in Barcelona, Hesse and Hesse, they're picking up on this. They don't necessarily use our language, but they clearly see also how business schools have contributed to that. So I think that boys need to do homework. So I think this in the US also there's lots of activity. I mean, Raj himself, he's a teacher and he teaches conscious capitalism at Babson College in Arizona. There's an entire university built on the conscious capitalism principles. So they use this it's a private university for their own activity. So it's not a course, but it's woven into all their activities. So it's getting there, and I think it's very good. And it's not our primary focus as a movement. We're more focused on the business leaders, but we need to educate the future business leaders in these concepts, so they have that as part of their DNA in a way, as a mindset, and that has not always been the case. I think business schools have done a lot of damage also.
The Babson College you were mentioning with Raj Sisodia, he has a course online which is free, where you can set up and get a course. It's a 4-week course with 4 or 5 hours a week, which is quite good and give you a good idea about conscious capitalism. If you want, we can send you the link. Which companies are a good example for conscious capitalism, in your opinion? Some you were mentioning already. Danone was one.
Yeah,
Patagonia were one.
Yeah, a nice example. I understand the audience is more Spain here. A company I really, really admire is DKV, the insurance company, health and insurance, run by Josep Santa Creu, a good friend of the movement, and he's a medical doctor, worked for NGOs, and then ended up through a lot of coincidences in this business. And it's a wonderful example of how to run a conscious business, successful, profitable. It's a fast-growing group with excellent service. That's a wonderful example. Our poster child, in a way, is Whole Foods, the organic supermarket chain in the US. That's the company that John Mackey founded. Here at the local level, we have Veritas, also a good friend, and Amatier, 2 food retailers who I think are doing great work in this space. Hola Luz, a energy company, which just went public, a founding member of Conscious Capitalism, fairly sizable company already, very, very conscious. If you look, you find them, and in our community, it's full of that, and that's part of the great fun. It's just good-hearted people who want to do good in the world, and it's just wonderful to be with them and to spend time and ideas with them.
Check out the Conscious Capitalism website, or Capitalismo Consciente in Spain, and B Corp. The B Corp companies are very conscious as well. So these are good examples. Do you think customers at the global scale will be willing to pay an extra $1 for responsible sourced products, or rather a large bunch of dollars? I mean, we were talking about it a little bit already.
I think it will take time. It's kind of disappointing how long it takes, and looking at myself, I also could be more mindful of how I spend my euros, but I think it's happening. Companies like the ones I mentioned, the food retailers, Veritas and Amatier here in Barcelona, you spend more money, but it's well spent for quality products and for a company that's responsible with all its stakeholders. So I'm happy to do that. It will take time, but things like climate change, Greta, COVID. There's also an interesting story to COVID. People relating COVID to industrial livestock farming. Not the particular COVID virus, but these pandemics. They could also happen because we treat animals the way we treat them, and that is breeding ground for all types of viruses. So I think these events will also step by step tell us that it just makes sense. It's cheap is not always better holistically. It takes time.
So last question, and quick one. Hi, sorry to get in late. Yes, because we talked about it, but I think it's important to bring it on the point again. I've only seen the second half, but I was wondering why calling it conscious capitalism if it's so difficult to explain and understand by so many. Paul Polman, ex-CEO of Unilever, talks about responsible capitalism.
Yeah,
it's easier to understand. And is there any difference?
No, I would agree. I didn't choose the name. I think a little bit the history is that it should have been conscious business. So conscious, I think, was important for them because it's a wider term, and I think it might be the better term. A little more complicated to explain, but I think it reflects better what we're trying to express than just being responsible. But conscious business was taken. It's a concept that in a book by Fred Kaufman, and then they opted for capitalism. And then also John Mackey, the founder, he's a firm believer he's a liberalist. He's a firm believer in small governments and liberal markets. So he also wasn't shy to use capitalism. I think it puts people off sometimes, so we get pushbacks. People don't want to have anything to do with capitalism, but then it's also an opportunity to explain. and Joe did that in the beginning. The huge benefit that this system has brought to humanity. Let's not forget about it. We haven't invented anything better. Let's just course correct and let's practice it in a different way. But the system as such is not bad. No, so I answered both conscious and capitalism. It's not the easiest name, but we learn to live with it.
Very true. So I think it's time, 10:03. So a little bit more than an hour. And I think we got in a point in our history where it's time for a change. And I hope you enjoyed your presentation and got some inspiration. Inspirations about the importance of a higher purpose. I think this is something really we should think about. It. What is a higher purpose in a company? And the importance of serving all stakeholders. So these are the 2 points you're taking home. That would be fantastic. Coming back to my initial question, do I like capitalism? From my point of view, yes, I do. And I would like to mention again, capitalism practiced in a conscious way is the biggest force for good the world has ever seen. So you're interested? You want to know more? We have some further information. Can you just show the slide again?
Oh, the slide, exactly. I'm not sharing screen, so hold on. Just a second.
There's 3 books we can strongly recommend you. All 3 from Raj Sisodia and some other guys. The first one is Conscious Capitalism, which is the base, the theory, the philosophy of what we're talking about. The second one, what I've mentioned before, also the Firms of Endearment. And the third one is a Conscious Capitalism Field Guide. So this is with really ideas, guidelines, how to put conscious capitalism into practice. And of course, you find the webpage, consciouscapitalism.com, capitalismoconsciente.es, and we also have our emails here, sebastian.ross@capitalismoconsciente.es, joe@capitalismoconsciente.es, and we would be happy to hear from you, to join, to get ideas, to whatever, would be great. And if you want, just leave a comment in the comment box on the right. If you liked it, give us some feedback. And yeah, thanks to all. Thanks to GBO. It was a pleasure. It was fun. I liked it. And hope to see you all soon.
Thank you from my side also. It was a pleasure sharing these wonderful ideas with you. Have a great day. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
GBO. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Very inspiring. Thanks.